budget bill across the finish line. Emotions ran high during the House floor debate. We have the details on the vote and the changes Speaker Johnson made in order to unite the Republican Party.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio testifies on the Hill for the second day in a row, this time in front of the House lawmakers, facing questions on department cuts and Trump's foreign policies.
Fleet Week in New York City is here, and we'll be speaking with a 26-year-old Navy veteran about the state of the U.S. Navy, its role now, and into the future.
This is NTD Good Morning, live from our global headquarters in New York City. Here are Stephanie Cox and Carrie Dunst.
Welcome to NTD. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Today is Thursday, May 22nd, and today's top news, we're starting out with some tragic news. A shooting. 2 Israeli embassy staff members were shot and killed near a Jewish museum in Washington, D.C. last night.
NTD's Daniel Monahan has the details on the deadly attack and the investigation.
A man is in custody after allegedly killing 2 Israeli embassy staff members outside an event at the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. Wednesday night.
We're going to stand together as a community in the coming days and weeks to send a clear message that we will not tolerate anti-Semitism.
Police say 30-year-old Elias Rodriguez from Chicago opened fire on a group leaving the museum around 9 p.m., fatally shooting a man and a woman. Both were found unresponsive and later pronounced dead.
Prior to the shooting, the suspect was observed pacing back and forth outside of the museum. He approached a group of 4 people, produced a handgun, and opened fire, striking both of our decedents.
Police say the suspect then entered the museum and was detained by security personnel.
The suspect chanted, "Free, free Palestine," while in custody.
The victims were Israeli diplomats attending an event hosted by the American Jewish Committee. Israeli ambassador to the United Nations, Danny Danon, criticized what he called incitement on campuses and many other places in recent weeks.
And unfortunately, today we faced a horrible terror attack against innocent people.
An Israeli diplomat says the pair were dating and planned to get engaged, and that the man had just purchased a ring and intended to propose in Jerusalem next week. President Trump expressed his condolences for the families of the victims and said hatred and radicalism have no place in America. FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino said early indicators point to an act of targeted violence. He confirmed that D.C. police and the FBI are jointly questioning the suspect. D.C. Field Office Assistant Director Steve Jensen reacted.
Tonight, a heinous crime was committed, and the FBI stands with the Metropolitan Police Department to help not only investigate the homicide and provide support, but also to look into ties to potential terrorism.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio condemned the attack as a brazen act of cowardly anti-Semitic violence, promising justice. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem called the killing senseless, vowing to, quote, bring this depraved perpetrator to justice. Attorney General Pam Bondi said she was at the crime scene with U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro, the top prosecutor in the district. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu said the world is witnessing the terrible price of anti-Semitism and what he called wild incitement against Israel. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Turning to the Middle East, Israel says it has likely killed one of the terrorist group's most elusive leaders. Here are the details.
Israel may have taken out another key figure in Hamas's leadership. Mohammed Sinwar, believed to be a top Hamas commander and the brother of Yahya Sinwar, was targeted in a massive Israeli strike on the European hospital in Khan Yunis last week. The Hamas-run Palestinian Ministry of Health says 28 people were killed, more than 50 injured. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Wednesday Israel has now killed several top Hamas figures.
We eliminated tens of thousands of terrorists. We eliminated the leaders of the murderers Daif, Hania, Yahya Sinwar, and most likely Mohammed Sinwar.
If confirmed, Sinwar's death would be the latest blow to Hamas leadership, but Israeli officials say it's not enough.
Our forces are capturing more and more territory to clear off Hamas terrorist infrastructure. And at the end of this process, all the areas of the Gaza Strip will be under Israeli security control.
Netanyahu said Israel is open to a temporary ceasefire for the release of more hostages. He also said the war in Gaza will continue until Hamas is disarmed and expelled from Gaza. He also spoke positively about President Trump's resettlement proposal.
I am ready to end the war on clear terms that will ensure Israel's security. All the hostages return home. Hamas lays down its arms, steps down from power. Its leadership is expelled from the Strip, meaning whoever remains of it. Gaza is completely disarmed, and we implement the Trump plan. A plan that is so correct and so revolutionary.
Israel says only 20 of the 58 hostages taken during the October 7th attack are known to still be alive. In Gaza, humanitarian aid is slowly making its way in, but the United Nations says it's not reaching the people who need it most. Israel said 100 trucks carrying flour, baby food, and medical supplies entered Gaza this week, but most of that aid hasn't left the border crossing. A UN spokesperson said the road the Israeli military had given aid trucks permission to use was too unsafe. Under pressure, Israel says it's about to launch a new aid system, creating what it calls a sterile zone in the south, free of Hamas and guarded by private contractors. But the UN and aid agencies warn it could become a tool of forced displacement. And while Gaza struggles, Israel is fending off threats from beyond. Early Thursday, sirens wailed as a missile from Yemen was intercepted mid-air. The Houthi terror group, which backs Palestinians in Gaza, has launched dozens of missiles since the war began. Most have missed their target or were shot down.
Another testy meeting in the Oval Office. President Trump's conversation with South Africa's president began cordially, but devolved into an open debate over allegations that white South Africans are being targeted for persecution. NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao has more.
Truly respected man in many, many circles, and in some circles he's considered a little controversial.
While the two leaders first started talking about trade and golfing, the Wednesday meeting got somewhat contentious as President Trump confronted South African President Cyril Ramaphosa with what he calls evidence showing mass killings of white South African farmers.
Turn the lights down and just put this on. It's right behind you. Johan.
There's nothing this parliament can do, with or without you. People are going to occupy land.
That's a video showing an opposition party leader in South Africa chanting phrases like kill the white farmer and take their land. Ramaphosa first laughed but then looked uncomfortable while quietly watching.
Death, death, death. Horrible death.
President Trump, holding up printed pictures, further accuses the South African government of taking people's land away and in some cases killing them. But the African president pushed back, saying remarks in the video are not their official government policy and that high crime rate in South Africa affects both white and black citizens.
What you saw, the speeches that were being made, one, that is not government policy. Nobody can take land.
While Ramaphosa, on his way out of the White House, called their meeting today a great success and says their two countries will keep on talking, it's unclear if President Trump has changed his views about the country. U.S.-South Africa relations have been deteriorating in recent years as Washington accuses the country of siding with U.S. adversaries like China and Iran. Trump, right after taking office, suspended all U.S. foreign aid to South Africa, citing violence and racist policies. And last week, around 60 white South Africans arrived in the U.S. as the first group granted asylum under President Trump's resettlement program.
White South Africans are fleeing because of the violence and racist laws.
And President Trump during the meeting says he's raising such issues to save lives, though he hasn't made up his mind yet about whether there is a genocide happening in South Africa. The U.S. has refused to attend the G20 meetings this year in South Africa, but President Ramaphosa invited Trump again today, though it's unclear if Trump will change his mind. Reporting from the White House, Iris Tao, NTD News.
Moments ago, the House passed the Republicans' big budget bill.
The vote came after a marathon of overnight debate and last-minute deal-making.
The vote was close, 215 to 214. 2 Republicans voted against it and 1 voted present.
The more than 1,000-page bill makes Trump's 2017 Trump tax cuts permanent, eliminates tax on tips, raises the nation's debt limit by $4 trillion, and boosts funding to help Trump carry out his immigration plans.
As part of a vow to make deep cuts to the federal budget, Republicans included several changes to Medicaid and the SNAP program, formerly known as food stamps. Able-bodied beneficiaries would need to prove they're working or going to school in order to get benefits.
To shore up support for the bill, Speaker Johnson made last-minute changes, speeding up the work requirements and increasing state and local tax deductions for high-tax states. The bill now goes to the Senate, where senators have said they'll break the bill apart and make changes to several portions.
And next, Secretary of State Marco Rubio was on Capitol Hill for a second day in a row. House lawmakers yesterday praised and criticized his moves at the State Department. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has the details.
Vladimir Putin, is he a war criminal? That's not tough.
That war crimes have been committed, no doubt. And who's responsible for that? There will be time and place for that accountability. But right now, the job is to end the war.
So you won't answer
if we don't
the
end
question.
the war, people are going to get
reclaiming my time, sir.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio on the Hill for the second day of sometimes contentious questioning.
I'll give you a second chance. Is Vladimir Putin a war criminal?
I already told you, war crimes have been committed.
No, you didn't tell me if he's a war criminal.
This time on the House side, the day before on the Senate, Rubio saying war crimes have been committed in the Russia-Ukraine war, but falling short of calling Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, a war criminal, saying that he first and foremost wants to end the war.
Crimes have been committed in the war on Ukraine, and there will be accountability for that. But our goal right now is to end that war, because let me tell you, every single day that that war goes on, more people are killed, more people are maimed, and frankly, more war crimes are being committed every day that the war lasts.
Rubio says that even with budget cuts reaching up to nearly 50% of the State Department's budget and restructuring in the whole department, he said that the U.S. will still provide more humanitarian aid to other countries than the next 10 other countries behind the U.S. combined. He also laid out how much bureaucratic red tape is preventing the State Department from taking vital action.
In order for an idea to reach me, a decision to reach the Secretary of State, some of these things have to be checked off by 40 people, 40 boxes. And if any one of these people has a question, they can hold it up before the idea even ever gets to me.
Secretary Rubio was also questioned on recent bills that passed the House, namely the Falun Gong Protection Act and the Stop Forced Organ Harvesting Act. Falun Gong practitioners are a group of around 100 million people in China, and they practice truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance, and they're targeted by the Chinese Communist Party for their faith.
You know, you and I have worked on issues like forced organ harvesting. You and Tom Cotton were the prime sponsors of a bill on the Senate side. And Xi Jinping is making billions by killing tens of thousands of young people, average age 28, each and every year, Falun Gong. And you know it, you're the sponsor of the bill.
Obviously, the organ harvesting, China plays a concerning role in that regard, and we would obviously be helpful in any way we can.
Rubio added that certain embassies around the world may be increasing staffing to process more visas more quickly, just in time for the World Cup and the Olympics here in the U.S. Reporting from Capitol Hill, Jack Bradley, NTD News.
And coming up, a rare May nor'easters bringing wind, cold, and heavy rain to New England.
It's just in time to soak early Memorial Day plans.
And Fleet Week is here, and we'll be speaking with a 26-year Navy veteran about the state of the U.S. Navy and its role now and into the future.
I'm Ilka. I live with my daughter and with my grandchildren. There's a sense of comfort that comes with eating a good meal. We try to make the most, of what we have. We have rent to pay, and then there are lights and there are gas. And while my daughter and I both work, it still just doesn't seem like there's enough to go around sometimes.
Every day, millions of our neighbors face hunger, including 1 in 5 children, and food costs keep rising. Please call or go online right now to join Feeding America with your gift of just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day. Your monthly support can fill plates with nutritious food for families across the country and in your community, thanks to a nationwide network of food banks and volunteers.
If you were over and playing with us, You were part of our family and you were going to eat. A real cook can take nothing and make something.
No one should ever have to wonder if they will have enough to eat, and our neighbors are working hard to feed their families every day. Call or go online now. Visit helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month. 98% of donations go directly to help millions of people facing hunger from coast to coast and in your own community. Use your credit card and you'll get this exclusive canvas grocery bag as a thank you for joining hands with people across America to help end hunger.
Some of the lessons that I hope that my family will take, it is important to treat people the way that you want to be treated. I have carried on the tradition of loving people through food.
Please call right now or go online to make a monthly gift at helpfeedingamerica.org. Your support helps our neighbors bring food home to their families.
We said we'd never give in to a meltdown.
Okay.
And we'd never babysit with a screen. We said we'd never let the toys take over.
Mariella!
Never leave the house looking, well, and never let them out of our sight.
Gala.
Skylar, come here. Cars get hot fast, and kids can be at risk. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
Welcome back. A rare May nor'easter is set to drench New England.
Forecasters say it will bring a burst of wintry weather, more typical of December than late spring.
It has been cold. Starting today, forecasters say gusts of more than 40 miles per hour and up to 2 inches of rain are possible, with snow expected at higher elevations. The heaviest rain is likely in Rhode Island and eastern Massachusetts.
Meteorologists say the unusual setup is being driven by a stalled jet stream and cold air, which is funneled down from the Canadian Arctic. Experts describe this as kind of like a traffic jam in the atmosphere where cold air is stuck in place instead of flowing as it normally does from east to west. And what this is doing is creating what one forecaster is calling a winter-type storm in May. As Memorial Day weekend approaches, this will mean outdoor activities like cookouts, beach trips, and parades are likely going to be dampened.
There's some new developments in the New Orleans jailbreak. Police have arrested 2 women for allegedly assisting the escapees from the Orleans Justice Center in Louisiana. At this time, 5 inmates are still at large, while 5 others are in custody. Louisiana State Police said in a statement that Courtney Harris and Corvante Baptiste are accused of accessory after the fact. Harris is accused of contacting one of the fugitives by phone before the jailbreak and later driving 2 escaped inmates to multiple locations in New Orleans. Baptiste was allegedly in contact by phone and social media with one of the escapees who's now in custody. If convicted, each woman could face up to 5 years in prison. A maintenance worker at the jail was arrested Tuesday in connection with the escape. Now onto the federal charges against a congresswoman accused of assaulting federal agents at an ICE facility. LaMonica McIver made her first court appearance yesterday. McIver appeared virtually from Washington during the 15-minute hearing in Newark, New Jersey. She was not asked to enter a plea and mostly answered questions from the judge about understanding the charges. McIver was released with conditions including surrendering firearms and was allowed travel for official congressional duties. The charges come after a May 9th incident where McIver allegedly pushed and grabbed federal agents during an attempted arrest of Newark's mayor. McIver denied the charges. In an interview with MSNBC, she called them politically motivated and defended her actions as part of her congressional oversight duties. Her next court appearance is set for June 11th, and she must appear in person. And a judge has ruled that the Trump administration broke the law by deporting illegal immigrants to South Sudan. The administration says the immigrants were convicted of violent crimes, while while also highlighting that the ruling was made by a district judge. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazdar has that story.
It is absolutely absurd for a district judge to try to dictate the foreign policy and national security of the United States of America.
A deportation flight to South Sudan is in the spotlight on Wednesday. During a hearing on Wednesday afternoon, District Judge Brian Murphy from Boston said that the flight violated a previous court ruling of his. Murphy had prohibited the deportation of immigrants to third countries without giving them the opportunity to contest their removal. Before the hearing, Homeland Security spokeswoman Tricia McLaughlin said this when asked about the legality of the deportation flight.
We are following due process under the U.S. Constitution. These individuals have been given, and their lawyers have been given, plenty of prior notice.
On Tuesday night, after the flight left for South Sudan, Judge Murphy had already ruled that authorities can't let the immigrants leave the custody of U.S. immigration authorities. According to the judge, authorities could follow that ruling in various ways. For example, by holding the immigrants on the plane in South Sudan. Murphy said, "I'm not going to limit Homeland Security on where they hold them. If they want to turn the plane around, they can." During Wednesday's hearing, a Trump administration official said the immigrants were currently sitting on a plane, but did not say in which country. McLaughlin defended the deportations, pointing to the criminal convictions of the 8 individuals.
No country on earth wanted to accept them because their crimes are so uniquely monstrous and barbaric. Every single one of them was convicted of a heinous crime: murder, rape, child rape, rape of a mentally and physically handicapped victim.
Now, McLaughlin didn't confirm whether South Sudan was actually the ultimate destination of these 8 individuals, suggesting it could also just be a stop. And in terms of their nationalities, lawyers for immigrants said that the Trump administration started deporting individuals from Myanmar and from Vietnam to South Sudan. Arian Pazdar, NTD News.
The Education Department is on its final mission. Brief pointed opening statements from Education Secretary Linda McMahon in front of the House Appropriations Committee yesterday.
She said her budget request that cuts funding by 15% reflects a, quote, bureaucracy that is getting out of the way. Some Democrats pushed back, one asking if Elon Musk had any contracts with the Education Department.
So, Department of Education, there are no contracts with any Elon Musk company. That's what I'm asking.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. All right. You want to check a blue card real quick, or are you pretty sure of that?
I said not to my knowledge.
Okay.
If I find out differently, I'll be happy to get back to you.
All right.
McMahon said she's cutting programs that do not fulfill the mandate for the American people and is giving education back to the states, parents, and educators.
She said higher education is, quote, broken, saying it misleads students into degrees that don't pay off and allows discriminatory and hostile environments on campus.
But she says the nation's report card will continue. Senators heard testimony from doctors yesterday about injuries related to the COVID-19 vaccine. The hearing specifically highlighted cases of myocarditis. NTD correspondent Jason Blair reports.
So much of our miserably failed response to COVID made no sense. Masking, devastating shutdowns, the sabotage of early treatment, rapid approval of remdesivir, and the maniacal reliance on the COVID-19 injections.
COVID-19 vaccines have saved millions and millions of lives.
The Senate Subcommittee on Investigations debated about adverse effects surrounding COVID-19 vaccines.
It still has been difficult to get the documents. I think we finally got enough documents to certainly demonstrate in this case with myocarditis that the federal government was well aware of it, downplayed the severity, and hid what they had actually found.
Let's be clear. The allegation is that they purposefully concealed evidence. I am unable to support that conclusion with this evidence.
Witnesses consisting mostly of doctors were brought in to testify.
Now, the topic today is myocarditis or heart damage from the COVID-19 vaccines. I'm a cardiologist. I know the topic well. I've examined thousands of patients with this problem. Thousands. Before the pandemic, I had 2 patients ever with this problem.
I also heard that deaths sharply declined in 2021. Well, when you look at all-cause mortality in the United States, deaths in 2021 went up compared to 2020, and presumably most of the most frail, the weak among us died in 2020 from COVID. We should have had a reduction in all-cause mortality in the United States. We did not.
But I've seen firsthand children dying from the spread of preventable diseases because of vaccine skepticism, because people lose faith.
One witness says he suffered from injuries after taking a COVID vaccine and had to quit his medical career.
I proudly elected to get vaccinated, and within a week, I developed leg weakness, numbness, substantial balance loss, leading to falls, including one while treating a patient. I was stunned that my providers dismissed any vaccine link, despite news of similar cases halting the AstraZeneca trial in the UK.
Another witness alleges that pregnant women were coerced into getting the COVID shots.
These entities falsely assured pregnant women that the vaccines were proven safe and essential for maternal and fetal newborn health, despite the fact that early evidence indicated quite the opposite.
Witness Dr. Jordan Vaughn disputed the use of ventilators on COVID patients during the pandemic.
This was primarily a vascular disease, not a pulmonary disease. And that's one of the reasons that ventilators are probably one of the most ineffective things you could have done to people, because if you have a vascular disease of the lungs, increasing the intrathoracic pressure just closes down more vessels and ultimately kills them.
Chairman Johnson indicated that there will be more hearings on COVID-related topics in the future. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Jason Blair, NTD News.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has signed a new law toughening penalties for swatting, and that is the act of making a false emergency call to trigger a heavy police response. DeSantis had previously signed a bill in 2021 making swatting a felony if it caused injury, damage, or death, but officials say the problem persists, fueled by new technologies that let callers disguise their voices and make their locations unseen as well. Now, the new measure, House Bill 279, increases penalties across the board. Swatting that causes serious injury is now a third-degree felony and a second-degree felony if it results in death. Repeat offenders also face tougher consequences, with the threshold for felony charges lowered from 4 incidents to just 2. The law also requires offenders to cover the costs of the investigations and prosecutions.
And coming up, Fleet Week, a celebration of the U.S.Navy, Coast Guard, and Marine Corps, returns to New York City for a week-long event. It coincides with the 250th anniversary of the Navy and the Marine Corps.
Yeah, the event has been held nearly every year now since 1984 and kicked off yesterday in New York.
The parade of ships sailed into New York Harbor and then proceeded up the Hudson River, passing the Statue of Liberty.
Although the rain yesterday, it did not dampen the lines of people that were gathered along the Hudson River to take a look.
Yeah, the event offers the public a chance to meet America's sailors, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen, and to see firsthand their military capabilities.
Fleet Week runs through Tuesday, the day after Memorial Day.
Joining us now to talk all things Navy as Fleet Week kicks off is Brent Sadler, a former Navy officer and a research fellow for naval warfare at the Heritage Foundation. Good to speak with you this morning, Brent. Happy Fleet Week.
Thank you, and good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, as we just heard, this year Fleet Week holds special significance as it coincides with the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Navy and Marine Corps. What does it mean to you?
Well, I think for sailors and the officers on these ships and the midshipmen at the Naval Academy, you know, with the summer training coming up, this is an opportunity for the citizens of the United States to kind of show their appreciation, and it really goes a long way. One of my first summer training tours was to a Fleet Week in Seattle, and it's still a very fond memory that I have from an entire week of, you know, the outpouring of support, and that's actually, I think, very well received from the decks of our warships and appreciated. So that first and foremost,
yeah,
you know, to thank you from the sailors.
That boost of morale goes a long way, I'm sure. Now, the U.S. Navy does remain the world's most powerful naval force, and we'll talk about efforts at modernizing it soon. But first, tell us about the state of the Navy today.
Well, I'll start with the good, and I'll move to the not so good. Well, the good, all it took was a course correction at the top, senior leadership, and a changing of approach to turn around 180 degrees the recruitment dilemma that the United States Navy was in. Other services were hurt far worse with diversity, equity, inclusion, which, despite the words used, had everything but that as an effect. It was divisive and alienating at best. And so now numbers are up, recruitment goals are being exceeded, and it looks like that trajectory is going to continue. The not so good are the years, a decade long of neglect or misprioritization of maintaining our warships and designing and building the next generation of warships. We're living off the legacy of the Cold War still in the types of ships we're designing, and it is not enough. They're coming to the fleet. New ships come too late to grow the fleet, to pace the threat. And it's almost a bit of a joke to say that we're pacing the China threat. The best thing we can do is try to instill question and to deter China right now, but we certainly aren't pacing them at the rate that we're putting ships into the water. And so that, unfortunately, I'll end on the not so good note.
Well, I want to now segue slightly into potential solutions that are being put forward, especially in terms of recent legislative and executive actions. We've seen the Bipartisan Ships Act and the Restoring America's Maritime Dominance Executive Order, designed to revitalize the U.S. shipbuilding and strengthen the Navy's industrial base. You recently wrote for the Heritage Foundation that the Ships for America Act is beginning to correct the course of what you've said is a Navy that's uncompetitive in output, efficiency, and safety. How is it correcting course?
Yeah, so for many years, at least, since I've been at Heritage, about 5 years now, I've been advocating that foundational to a strong Navy is a strong maritime industry. That includes commercial shipping and shipbuilding. And we really are not a player, even though we are the world's largest economy. And so we rely on some hostile countries to sustain our economy and to support our military. That includes having an adequate naval shipbuilding. So the Ships for America Act is perhaps the most comprehensive attempt by Congress and the executive branch, too, an industry coming on board to try to address this. It's the first time since the 30s, since FDR was in the White House, that you've seen the scale of this. Now, there are issues with the bill. It's not a perfect one. Something this comprehensive won't be. And it will take years of dedicated leadership with a vision to drive this forward. And, one of the other very favorable things that makes this likely and why I'm optimistic is you have a president in the White House right now, Donald Trump, who is very aggressive on this issue and is driving all of the agencies in the U.S. government to address this issue. You mentioned the executive order. That's one of the examples of his dedication to this.
And so looking at the solutions put forward so far, you said more needs to be done. What would you advise to really take us to the forefront?
Well, right now, Congress has just completed a milestone event on reconciliation bill. This is good. We need block buys of naval ships to lock in the demand signal so that the shipbuilders know that they're going to need to hire more workforce, make those plans with that money that's coming for new ships, but also to expand their industrial capacity. It's atrophied to a sad state. It's not able to meet the demand signal just to meet a 300-ship Navy. We're down about 292, 93 as of today. So even just growing that modest amount is going to require some capital investments. That's what needs to happen in the near term.
And finally, Brent, you mentioned the China threat, and this is one of the key issues here, that China is advancing its Navy as well, building ships at a pretty fast pace. If you could just describe the urgency that, as you see it, in terms of modernizing the Navy and the threat that's posed.
Yes, so the number one national, core interest from Beijing is forcefully reuniting, it as appears more and more the only path forward for the Chinese Communist Party, with Taiwan. And being an island, it means it's going to be a naval war. So the strength of the U.S. Navy, in concert with our close allies like Japan, South Korea, the Australians, and even the Filipinos, that's what deters the Chinese Communist leadership from making the decision that today's the day to go. But they have a military that is modernizing, growing at a breakneck speed, and more importantly, and most troubling, making the danger seem much more near term, that the leadership in Beijing may pull the trigger. Development of key capabilities like bridging and mobile piers that they can bring in at a massive scale so they can effect a large land invasion of Taiwan. So they are building everything that's needed to execute a successful invasion. The only thing that's standing between that and continuing the peace is a strong Navy. So it is a very real, and they are acting in a manner around with the Philippines, the Taiwan, and then, of course, our allies in Japan. They're acting as if they're less and less deterred. So again, the danger is very real. This is not a next decade issue.
All right. U.S. Navy, more important than it's ever been. Thank you so much, Brent Sadler of the Heritage Foundation. Great to speak with you.
Thank you, and enjoy Fleet Week.
And same to you. And coming up, propaganda influence operations from the Chinese regime are expanding. And Kevin Hogan brings us a data-driven report on how many deceptive YouTube accounts have been disrupted after this break.
Focus on beauty, showcase nature, share kindness, feel brightness. 2025, the 5th NTD International Photography Competition. Capture the beautiful moments in your eyes. Your works will be showcased in galleries and on multiple online platforms, appreciated and collected. Please visit photo.ntdtv.com.
Shein Creations, the streaming platform from Shein, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore SheinCreations.com.
I was a young dad of 3 amazing kids, and just when you feel like life is starting to come together, you get kind of hit in the face. I was born with a congenital heart defect and had open heart surgery as a kid. I was supposed to go to the heart doctor once a year, and I finally went. He listened to my heart, and I'll never forget, he sat back and he said, yeah, it's time for open heart surgery, or you risk your aorta rupturing, and that's it. I was scared out of my mind. The night before my open heart surgery, I made a goodbye video for my kids, just in case I didn't make it.
Be strong. Take care of your mom. I love you guys.
Seeing, all the kids hug him goodbye and hoping that they were going to be able to hug him again.
I love you.
But I did make it, thanks to the work of the American Heart Association. So that's why I'm asking you to join me.
Please call now or go to helpheart.org with your donation to help save lives.
You can help get the next person trained in CPR, get the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care, as well as fund the next medical breakthrough like these heart valves that help save my life.
I'm most grateful that I get to have a husband that I get to grow old with, and a husband that gets to be there for his children.
Heart disease is the #1 killer in the U.S.
That's why it's so important that you call or go online right now with your generous gift.
I believe without the American Heart Association, I would not be here today. If this can happen to me, it can happen to you, it can happen to anybody. We all need your help. And your donation can literally help save a life.
Please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org now with your gift of any amount.
Welcome back.
If you're just joining us now, here's some of today's top headlines.
2 Israeli diplomats were shot and killed outside a Washington, D.C. museum last night. Police say the suspect, 30-year-old Elias Rodriguez of Chicago, opened fire as they left an event. Police say he shouted, "Free Palestine," while in custody. An Israeli official says the victims were a couple planning to get engaged. Officials are investigating the shooting as a possible act of targeted anti-Semitic violence.
The House passed the Republicans' big budget bill after a marathon of overnight debate and last-minute deal-making. The vote was close, 215 to 214. 2 Republicans voted against and 1 voted present. The more than 1,000-page bill makes Trump's 2017 tax cuts permanent. It eliminates tax on tips, raises the nation's debt limit by $4 trillion, and boosts funding to help Trump carry out his immigration plans. The bill now goes to the Senate, where senators have said they'll break the bill apart and make changes to several portions.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio was on Capitol Hill for a second day in a row yesterday, where he faced, at times, contentious questioning by House lawmakers over his decisions. At the State Department, Rubio commented on the bureaucratic red tape at his department, which he says has been a big hurdle for getting any action done. He also made comments on the recent bills passed by the House to crack down on the CCP's forced organ harvesting of prisoners of conscience. And the Chinese regime is using social media more to bolster its image. This while slandering the U.S. and groups that it's persecuting. Google's taking action to disrupt these YouTube accounts and others.
But why is the Chinese Communist Party doing this, and how prevalent is it? Our data reporter Kevin Hogan has more on the story.
The Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, has at least two objectives. One is to displace the United States as the world's leading superpower, and two, persecute a spiritual group in China. And that's part of the reason why it uses these influence operations on platforms such as YouTube. So we have data from Google's policing agency, TAG, that shows that these Dragon Bridge accounts that are linked to the CCP that spread propaganda have been proliferating on YouTube, and Google has knocked down over 197,000 of them. So that's a lot. That's between 2022 to the first quarter of this year. And when you dive deeper into the data, you start to see that each year this trend is increasing. For example, in 2022, Google took down about 50,000 of them, but that has only gone up to over 60,000 in 2024. So that trend is increasing. And I'll just give you an example on this. So first of all, it's very bad that the CCP is using YouTube to spread its lies while Google is doing the work of knocking them down. Some of the good news is that a lot of these accounts are just viewed as troll accounts. They don't pick up that much traction, maybe 100 views or less. Now, at the same time, there is research by Rutgers that suggests that YouTube has a pro-China bias when it relates to things like the persecution that's happening in China and human rights abuses. And China analysts have said that while these particular types of videos, for example, from a vlogger, they may be promoted by YouTube, even though that vlogger is repeating propaganda lines from the current regime leader in China. So that said, you look at 2025 and you see that just in that first quarter, that's about 20,000 or so of these accounts that have been taken down by Google. They're on track to reach a record if they continue at that rate. And when you look further into the data, you see that these Dragon Bridge accounts hit a record when they were down, they were being taken down at a record of 11,000 plus in just January of this year. So that's a record high. It just shows that the CCP is very aggressive and it's continuing to use YouTube and Blogger to push out these fake accounts, right? So back to one of the goals that we mentioned that the CCP has of persecuting a spiritual group in China. What the CCP does is that it uses YouTube, an American company, to export its repression internationally of Falun Gong. Falun Gong is a peaceful spiritual movement based on the values of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. And some of these Falun Gong practitioners are Shein dancers. This is a performing arts company that shows China before communism, and part of what it does is it shines a light on the persecution of Falun Gong in China. So that's information from the Falun Dafa Information Center cited by whistleblowers that show that the CCP is targeting Shein for that particular reason because it exposes the persecution. So that's one of the ways that the CCP uses YouTube, just these fake propaganda accounts, but that's not all. There's what's been called a more sophisticated approach in which the CCP will find established influencers, Western people that have a big following on YouTube, and they'll pay them money to disseminate their propaganda materials. I'll give you an example. Tim Pool, he's a prominent U.S. political commentator. He says that some random unknown account emailed him and offered him $200 to promote and share a video disparaging Falun Gong. He wouldn't take the money and wouldn't do it, saying, "What is this?" But that just goes to show that the CCP will use those means to try to spread its lies. And our China analyst, David Zhang, he's the host of China Insider with David Zhang, he shines a light on this, saying that the CCP has manipulated the public opinion space, especially on YouTube, in the past 2-3 years to really focus on using foreign faces and not people from China to try to legitimize their claims. So this is happening, and it's very important for people on Blogger and especially YouTube to make sure that the content they're consuming isn't procured by some paid propagandist. Back to you.
Shein and Temu face a proposed fee of €2, just over $2, to ship low-value packages to customers in the EU. The EU says this will pay for the handling fees to ensure goods meet the strict entry standards set by the bloc. European retailers say the current duty-free policy gives the Chinese suppliers an unfair advantage. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson has more.
The European Union has proposed a €2 import handling fee for billions of small packages delivered from China straight into people's homes, sold by online platforms such as Shein and Temu. EU customs authorities handled some 4.6 billion low-value packages bought online in 2024, twice as many as the year before, and the vast majority of them, some 91%, coming from China. The volume has created a huge workload for EU customs staff and presents challenges to ensuring the safety and standards of goods entering the bloc. The European Parliament's Trade Committee Chair, Bernd Lange, said on Wednesday, "With 4.6 billion packages, you can't really have proper controls, and to introduce it costs a lot of money. Therefore," he said, "it's fair to ask Alibaba, Temu or Shein to pay their fair share of the cost." European retailers say the existing duty-free policy gives Shein and Temu an unfair advantage. Under the proposal, packages worth under €150 or $170 would no longer be customs-free. The proposed €2 fee is around $2.27 per parcel sent directly to customers. Parcels sent to warehouses in the EU would see a lower 50 tax. The fee needs approval from EU governments, which have not yet discussed it, and from the European Parliament. The EU's move follows a similar US tariff on Chinese goods sent to America. The United States this month scrapped its de minimis policy that allowed duty-free entry to parcels worth less than $800. Temu and Shein had relied on the de minimis rule to ship items directly to customers. President Trump called it a scam that damaged small American businesses and threatened national security. Now, these low-value Chinese goods face either a 54% tax or a flat $100 fee per postal package. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News.
Coming up, the U.S. Army is rolling tanks into Washington, D.C. for a massive 250th birthday celebration. What else is planned for the June 14th event?
Looking for a healthy and smooth-tasting brew? Drop by Days Coffee Roasters today and explore our wide selection of specialty-grade, small-batch roasted coffee. Home to North America's first enzyme-fermented coffee, we source a wide selection of specialty-grade coffee beans from around the world, and our baristas are ready to craft your customized brew. Visit Days Coffee at 28 North Street, Middletown, New York. Come experience a brew like no other.
What if you could whiten your teeth by simply brushing your teeth? Now you can with Smile Actives, the teeth whitening breakthrough that safely gets your teeth white and keeps them white every day, just by brushing your teeth.
I never thought that whitening my teeth could be so easy. I just put the gel on the brush, the toothpaste on it, brush, and I can see my white teeth.
Simply add Smile Actives to any toothpaste and our patented PolyClean technology activates into a powerful microfoam that penetrates into the enamel surface to safely lift and remove stains.
You need a simple way to whiten your teeth. without strips, without trays, without going to the dentist. And it was about time that a product was developed that you would be able to do that with just brushing.
And now Smile Actives is even better with new Pro Whitening Gel with 33% greater whitening power, clinically shown to whiten teeth faster, up to 8 shades. 100% of users saw whiter teeth. On food stains, coffee and wine stains, even on veneers, crowns, and dentures.
I eat the blueberries, I drink the coffee, and I know that Smile Actives will keep my teeth white every day.
If you could use something so easy like Smile Actives to take yellow teeth to white teeth, why wouldn't you?
Why spend hundreds of dollars for whitening treatments at the dentist when now you can whiten your teeth with new Smile Actives Pro Whitening Gel every time you brush your teeth? Call or go to smileactives.com and for a limited time get new Pro Whitening Gel for just $24.95. Order in the next 5 minutes and buy one get one absolutely free for just $24.95. That's 2 for 1 and save 58%. We'll even include free shipping. Get your teeth whiter guaranteed or return it within 60 days for your money back.
I smile every day now.
The difference is literally night and day.
So now I'm always smiling, always choosing, because now my teeth are much whiter.
This offer is not available in stores, so call or click now before the special buy one get one free offer goes away.
Got a new house.
I think I finally found a place that I call home.
Welcome back. The Army is preparing to celebrate its 250th birthday in grand fashion with tanks, troops, and a parade through the nation's capital.
The Department of Defense said the first M1A2 Abrams tank began rolling out of Fort Cavazos, Texas yesterday, bound for Washington, D.C.
Most of the journey will happen by train, with Fort Cavazos relying on its in-house rail yard facility to move the 140,000-pound tanks.
Around half the vehicles in the parade will come from Fort Cavazos, including Bradley fighting vehicles, Strykers, Paladin, howitzers, and about 1,800 soldiers.
According to the Department of Defense, the event on June 14th will feature military demonstrations and a festival on the National Mall with fireworks, music, and a fitness competition.
The Army expects as many as 200,000 people at the celebration, which is now projected to cost between $25 and $45 million. The parade was added late in the planning process and echoes a similar event President Trump proposed during his first term.
And the NBA has named its most valuable player.
Yes, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander of the Oklahoma City Thunder got the nod a day after leading his team to a Game 1 victory over the Minnesota Timberwolves in the Western Conference Finals.
Gilgeous-Alexander won over Nikola Jokic of the Denver Nuggets, who Thunder defeated in a Game 7 playoff blowout. Last year, the Thunder guard finished as runner-up to Jokic, who won his third award.
The seventh-year guard was the best player on the best team in the regular season. SGA, as he's nicknamed, led the NBA with nearly 33 points per game, shooting 52% from the field and 38% from behind the three-point arc. The all-around player also averaged over 6 assists, 5 rebounds, and nearly 2 steals per game.
Flag football is moving forward for the 2028 Olympics as NFL owners have officially approved players to compete in the Los Angeles Games.
Yeah, the decision will bring football's top talent to the global stage for the first time. NTD's Christina Corona out of LA tells us more.
Flag football is headed to the world's biggest stage, the Olympics. And for the first time ever, NFL players could suit up to represent their country in 2028.
The NFL owners unanimously passed a resolution giving every NFL player an opportunity to play in the Olympics in 2028 in Los Angeles. I think this news represents a great opportunity for the sport, for the NFL. It's truly the next step in making NFL football and football a global sport.
NFL owners voted Tuesday to let league players compete in the 2020 Olympic flag football competition in Los Angeles. To pass, the vote required support from 24 of 32 team owners. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell said it passed with full support.
For our players, we think it's a tremendous opportunity for them to represent their country, to compete for a gold medal, which is the pinnacle of
global sports.
Only one player from each NFL team will be allowed to take part in the Olympic event.
Just to think about the chances of, playing in the Olympics and, getting a gold medal is a dream.
The NFL will offer injury protection and salary cap credit to players who participate. The league will collaborate with the Players Union, the International Federation of American Football, and Olympic officials to establish rules for NFL player participation. The Olympic tournament will feature 6 men's and 6 women's teams, each with 10 players. Games will be 5-on-5, with remaining players serving as substitutes. Minnesota Vikings wide receiver Justin Jefferson said he was speechless after learning he might have a chance to compete in the Olympic Games.
Just reverting back to being a kid and watching the track and field, meets, watching basketball win the gold medal. So, that's something that as a kid I always wanted to be a part of, but football wasn't globally. So now that we're expanding the game and we're going more globally, it's pretty cool.
He says the Olympics were something he looked up to as a child. Flag football, which is a non-contact version of the game, is played by over 20 million people in over 100 countries. Reporting from the city of El Monte, Christina Corona, NTD News.
Well, that's some exciting news. Anytime you tune into a competition, especially the Olympics, you want to see the elite of the sport, and it'll be great to get to catch some of those NFL players play in the offseason. So I'm looking forward to that. We're going to head to a quick break now. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
I had a pretty normal mom life. Everything was pretty good, and it was a very happy life.
And we just had a new baby. And then all of a sudden, within a day or two, she's on life support and fighting for her life.
And I knew something was pretty wrong. A little less than a week after I came home, I couldn't breathe. That's when we decided to go to the hospital. I was given the diagnosis that I had peripartum cardiomyopathy, which is basically a pregnancy-induced heart failure. They told me my only chance was a heart transplant.
And the American Heart Association helped make that possible. Their research helped save me.
This could not happen without monthly donations from friends like you. Your sustained support helps fund life-saving research that leads to medical breakthroughs, like those that gave Jen a second chance at life. Heart disease is the #1 killer in America, and we urgently need your help to save lives. Go to helpheart.org or call now to become a monthly donor today. Your donation of only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, will make a difference through prevention, early detection, treatments, and cures that help save lives.
I am very thankful for the American Heart Association. I'm grateful for just every day that I get with my children.
Please go to helpheart.org or call now with your donation of just $19 a month. Join our community of monthly donors, and you'll get this limited edition t-shirt you could wear to show you're helping save lives.
One simple act today can save your life or the life of a loved one.
Please call or go online to helpheart.org. Become a monthly donor, and for a limited time only, your first month's gift will be matched.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
They're just young people, hungry, homeless, and vulnerable. Covenant House is helping young adults facing homelessness. We're providing safe shelter to thousands, but the need is overwhelming. Please call or go online now. With your gift of $19 a month, we'll send you this blanket as a reminder of the comfort your gift provides a young person tonight. You'll provide safe shelter, hot meals, and medical care. Call the number on your screen or go online to safeplacetosleep.org.
Welcome to NTD.
Good morning. Here are today's top stories. On Capitol Hill, lawmakers have passed the GOP's budget bill after holding another overnight debate marathon. We have details on the vote and the changes Speaker Johnson made in order to unite the Republican Party.
2 Israeli diplomats are dead after being shot outside a D.C. museum. Police say the suspect, now in custody, yelled "Free Palestine" during his arrest.
President Trump clashing with South Africa's president in the Oval Office over accusations of Afrikaner genocide. What's in the video that Trump showed and how the South African leader responded.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio testifies on the Hill for a second day in a row, this time in front of House lawmakers facing questions on department cuts and Trump's foreign policies.
Looking to plan a summer trip? Expect to pay inflated accommodation prices at popular destinations. We'll speak to a data analyst at Bankrate for what you can expect and advice for finding deals.
This is NTD Good Morning, live from our global headquarters in New York City. Here are Stephanie Cox and Carrie Dunst.
Welcome to NTD. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Today is Thursday, May 22nd, and we're starting out with some tragic news. A shooting. 2 Israeli embassy staff members were shot and killed near a Jewish museum in Washington, D.C. last night.
NTD's Daniel Monahan has the details on the deadly attack and the investigation.
A man is in custody after allegedly killing 2 Israeli embassy staff members outside an event at the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. Wednesday night.
We're going to stand together as a community in the coming days and weeks to send a clear message that we will not tolerate anti-Semitism.
Police say 30-year-old Elias Rodriguez from Chicago opened fire on a group leaving the museum around 9 p.m., fatally shooting a man and a woman. Both were found unresponsive and later pronounced dead.
Prior to the shooting, the suspect was observed pacing back and forth outside of the museum. He approached a group of 4 people, produced a handgun, and opened fire, striking both of our decedents.
Police say the suspect then entered the museum and was detained by security personnel.
The suspect chanted, "Free, free Palestine," while in custody.
The victims were Israeli diplomats attending an event hosted by the American Jewish Committee. Israeli ambassador to the United Nations, Danny Danon, criticized what he called incitement on campuses and many other places in recent weeks.
And unfortunately, today we faced a horrible terror attack against innocent people.
An Israeli diplomat says the pair were dating and planned to get engaged, and that the man had just purchased a ring and intended to propose in Jerusalem next week. President Trump expressed his condolences for the families of the victims and said hatred and radicalism have no place in America. FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino said early indicators point to an act of targeted violence. He confirmed that D.C. police and the FBI are jointly questioning the suspect. D.C. Field Office Assistant Director Steve Jensen reacted.
Tonight, a heinous crime was committed, and the FBI stands with the Metropolitan Police Department to help not only investigate the homicide and provide support, but also to look into ties to potential terrorism.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio condemned the attack as a brazen act of cowardly anti-Semitic violence, promising justice. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem called the killing senseless, vowing to, quote, bring this depraved perpetrator to justice. Attorney General Pam Bondi said she was at the crime scene with U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro, the top prosecutor in the district. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu said the world is witnessing the terrible price of anti-Semitism and what he called wild incitement against Israel. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Just this morning, the House passed the Republicans' big budget bill.
The vote came after a marathon of overnight debate and last-minute deal-making.
The vote was close, 215 to 214. Congressman Thomas Massie and Warren Davidson were the 2 Republicans who voted against it, and 1 voted present.
More than 1,000-page bill makes Trump's 2017 tax cuts permanent. It also eliminates tax on tips, raises the nation's debt limit by $4 trillion, and boosts funding to help Trump carry out his immigration plans.
as part of a vow to make deep cuts to the federal government and the budget. Republicans included several changes to Medicaid and the SNAP program, formerly known as food stamps. Able-bodied beneficiaries will need to prove they're working or going to school in order to get benefits with this budget. Here is Johnson after the voting.
Today, the House has passed generational, truly nation-shaping legislation to reduce spending and permanently lower taxes for families and job creators, secure the border, unleash American energy dominance, restore peace through strength, and make government work more efficiently and effectively for all Americans. House Democrats voted against all of that. So everything that I just said, they voted the opposite. Clearly proves they must want the largest tax increase in U.S. history on the American citizens. They must want open borders. They've proven that over and over. They must want Medicaid for illegal immigrants.
To get the budget bill across the finish line, lawmakers held another overnight debate marathon. Emotions ran high on the House floor, and Speaker Johnson made last-minute changes to unite the Republican Party. NTD's Melina Weisskopf has the details.
After 20 hours of a marathon debate in the Rules Committee, several hours of debate unfolded on the House floor overnight. Republicans pointing out what they see as strengths of their budget bill, Democrats expressing strong opposition.
In this bill, SNAP, the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, will experience more than $300 billion in cuts, the largest cut to nutritional assistance in American history. Literally, Mr. Speaker, Republicans are taking food out of the mouths of children, disabled Americans, veterans, and older Americans. That is another reason why we are strongly opposed to this bill.
When is somebody going to finally do something about the fraud so that I feel comfortable that if I'm funding my government, it's going to go to help the people who deserve it and not some 35-year-old kid who's fully able-bodied who's sitting in his mom's basement playing video games, getting over $40,000 in taxpayer-funded benefits while you're working 2 jobs, while the waiter or waitress averaging $32,000 a year is struggling to get by. We help them. That's who we're helping.
House Speaker Mike Johnson made last-minute changes to secure his party support. State and local tax deductions are increased for those living in high-tax states, and Medicaid work requirements will take effect next year instead of in 2029. Medicaid would no longer cover gender transition treatments for children or adults, and it rolls back tax credits for renewable energy sources.
And it doesn't matter how much the media doubts this or how much the Democrats, give us their narratives. Doesn't matter how long the speeches are, it doesn't change the facts. We're delivering, and we're doing it in a big way. So to our friends in the Senate, I would just say the president is waiting with his pen.
Some Republican senators have signaled their opposition to some parts of the House's bill, like the Medicaid portion. Senate Leader John Thune wants to make changes to the tax portion, and some senators have said they want to break apart the House's bill and pass the pieces separately. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
And another testy meeting in the Oval Office. President Trump's conversation with South Africa's president began cordially, but devolved into an open debate over allegations that white South Africans are being targeted for persecution. NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao has more.
Truly respected man in many, many circles, and in some circles he's considered a little controversial.
While the two leaders first started talking about trade and golfing, the Wednesday meeting got somewhat contentious as President Trump confronted South African President Cyril Ramaphosa with what he calls evidence showing mass killings of white South African farmers.
Turn the lights down and just put this on. It's right behind you, Johan.
There's nothing this parliament can do with or without you. People are going to occupy land.
That's a video showing an opposition party leader in South Africa chanting phrases like kill the white farmer and take their land. Ramaphosa first laughed but then looked uncomfortable while quietly watching.
Death, death, death. horrible death.
President Trump, holding up printed pictures, further accuses the South African government of taking people's land away and in some cases killing them. But the African president pushed back, saying remarks in the video are not their official government policy and that high crime rate in South Africa affects both white and black citizens.
What you saw, the speeches that were being made, one, that is not government policy. Nobody can take land.
While Ramaphosa, on his way out of the White House, called their meeting today a great success and says their two countries will keep on talking, it's unclear if President Trump has changed his views about the country. U.S.-South Africa relations have been deteriorating in recent years as Washington accuses the country of siding with U.S. adversaries like China and Iran. Trump, right after taking office, suspended all U.S. foreign aid to South Africa, citing violence and racist policies. And last week, around 60 white South Africans arrived in the U.S. as the first group granted asylum under President Trump's resettlement program.
White South Africans are fleeing because of the violence and racist laws.
And President Trump during the meeting says he's raising such issues to save lives, though he hasn't made up his mind yet about whether there is a genocide happening in South Africa. The U.S. has refused to attend the G20 meetings this year in South Africa, but President Ramaphosa invited Trump again today, though it's unclear if Trump will change his mind. Reporting from the White House, Iris Tao, NTD News.
And joining us to discuss the meeting and the U.S.-South African relations is Gerard Filitti, an attorney specializing in international law. Always good to see you, Gerard. Thank you for joining. Starting right off with a surprising moment, what did you make of Trump's assertion of genocide?
Well, it was very interesting to see Trump confronting President Ramaphosa in that way, and it's altogether not unexpected. We have seen South Africa moving steadily into a camp that is anti-America in alignment, whether it's siding with Iran or with China, whether it's persecuting people in South Africa, whether it's also siding with terrorist supporters against the state of Israel, which is America's longtime ally. We've seen Donald Trump take an increasingly confrontational approach to countries that veer away from supporting America and instead support its enemies. So this was not altogether unexpected, and the way that he did this was a very, very telling of Donald Trump's style as president, to actually put video on display and put the president of South Africa on the spot.
Gerard, in the wake of last night's tragic shooting in D.C., do the actions of countries like South Africa have any connection to sort of the rise in anti-Semitism in your view?
They do, and these countries increasingly matter. What we're seeing is an axis of evil that is bounded by Iran, that is supported by countries like China, but is increasingly getting influence in countries like South Africa or like Ireland, countries that have become so anti-Semitic and so unwelcoming to Jews and opponents of the state of Israel that they are actively pursuing the lies. They're actively propagating the lies that are made by states like Iran. They're actually supporting terrorism. They're supporting the same lies, the same propaganda that terrorist organizations use to target Jews around the world, and they're allowing Jews to be targeted within South Africa as well. So what we're seeing is part of an axis of evil. South Africa, unfortunately, is falling into that orbit increasingly, and President Trump's confrontation came at a very important time in history.
And I don't want to go too far off the South Africa topic, but what really caught my attention with what you just said is in South Africa, perhaps a country more prone to fall for critical race theory, but in Ireland, a fully westernized and thriving economy. Why is that working in a country like Ireland?
It's working in a country like Ireland because it's been subjected to narratives, rightly so, of occupation and dominance for decades. Ireland has fought to free itself from British rule, successfully so. North Ireland has been a hotspot for decades. But all of this ideology stems back to the idea of the oppressed versus the oppressor. And in Ireland, they fall for the propaganda that's put forth by Iranian proxies that Palestinians are somehow oppressed people, when in fact they're nothing of the sort. So this is why we are seeing these lies, these very dangerous ideologies being shared even in Western enlightened countries like Ireland to propaganda that's put out.
Now, Gerard, Trump began speaking out against this land appropriation law in South Africa in late January, and then a month later he cut funding through executive order. Why do you think the meeting is taking place now and it took so long for there to be dialogue?
I think it took so long for there to be dialogue because, quite frankly, there are more pressing issues right now on the international scene, including an active war with Russia, Ukraine, and the war in Gaza. This is something that has been at the top of Trump's agenda, but somewhat less pressing than reestablishing our domestic economy, imposing tariffs, dealing with the threat of China and the other international crises. Now, what we're seeing in South Africa is that it's following a path that was taken by Zimbabwe a few decades earlier. We're seeing a policy of expropriating white landowners, of expropriating white businesses, of basically asserting control of in a racist and racial manner that is completely opposite of what happened during the apartheid era. So South Africa has swung 180 degrees. It's gone from being a racist apartheid state to again approaching that level, but in the entirely different direction. And Donald Trump is trying to stop that from happening because South Africa has been a strong ally to the West in the past, and we don't want to see it falling into this orbit of oppression and communist ideology.
Now, of course, in the media here, we like to draw attention when there's conflict, but Ramaphosa remained cool and calm as these allegations were brought up. Do you think ultimately that he was successful in gaining the friendship and the support of President Trump?
I think ultimately Ramaphosa handled this well, and Donald Trump did point out that he's not sure whether a genocide is actually happening in South Africa. And quite frankly, it's difficult to point it as a genocide. What we do see is an attempt at ethnic cleansing. We do see an attempt at dominance of racism that is a narrative in South Africa that has been going on for far too long. I think Ramaphosa has been able to convince Donald Trump that it is not the official position of the South African government, but notwithstanding those reassurances, we still see that South Africa has a far way to go to ensure equality among its citizens, especially when it comes to the basis of race.
And he did sign a law that allows for appropriation without compensation, though he, of course, didn't put it into effect as of yet, potentially because of Trump coming out so strongly. Do you expect the U.S. to now participate in the upcoming G20 meetings?
I do not. I think that the United States will continue to boycott the G20 meetings taking place in South Africa and other breakaway discussions taking place there as well. I think we will also see increasing pressure on our intelligence cooperation with South Africa and more of a blunt statement of warning that South Africa is falling into a bad connection with China, with communist ideology. That's ultimately what this is. This is Marxism, expropriating land without compensation, creating class warfare. This is the communist playbook. And as we see South Africa veering more into the pocket of the Chinese communist government and other enemies of the United States, I think President Trump will take a firmer stand on South Africa. This is an awakening. This is a moment for South Africa to realize it has a chance to come back towards democracy. Whether or not Ramaphosa does so remains to be seen.
Well, we appreciate your analysis this morning. A lot to unpack there, and we'll be keeping a close eye on it going forward. Gerard Filitti, thanks for joining.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
And up ahead, Secretary of State Marco Rubio testifies on the Hill for the second day in a row, this time in front of the House lawmakers facing questions on department cuts and Trump's foreign policies. That and more after this break.
Say goodbye to harsh, bitter coffee and hello to a delicious, smooth brew. With specialty quality beans, expertly roasted in-house, you'll taste the difference with every sip. Fermented with a blend of 50 enzymes, Days Coffee delivers a rich brew like no other. Made with the highest grade specialty beans available, you're sure to taste the difference. Elevate your morning with Days Enzyme Fermented Coffee.
I'm Amy Grant, and I want to talk to you from my heart about the heart. I would have been the last person on the list to say this woman has a problem with her heart. So no, there was nothing about my life that said, you have a ticking time bomb in your chest. But I did. I wound up in the office of a cardiologist because I was there with my husband. And at the tail end of that, The cardiologist looked at me and said, "I want to see you." No one was more surprised than I was to learn I was living with a rare heart condition. He said, "Amy, this condition, you'll be fine, and then catastrophic." A few months later, I had open heart surgery that saved my life. And I owe it to the research and life-saving medical breakthroughs developed by the American Heart Association. That's why I'm asking you to join me and become a monthly donor to the American Heart Association. Please call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help fund the next medical breakthrough, get the next person trained in CPR, and get the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. If this could happen to me, it could happen to anybody. Heart disease is America's #1 killer, but your support can save your life or the life of someone you love. Give $19 a month with your credit card and we'll send you this special t-shirt you can wear to show you're part of a community of monthly donors working to help save more lives like mine. I'm grateful for the American Heart Association. Their research gave me more time to do the things I love with the people I love. So listen to your heart. I'm here today because I did.
Please call or go online to helpheart.org. Become a monthly donor, and for a limited time only, your first month's gift will be matched.
Thank you.
If you love them enough to crawl into a play place to get them to come down, then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio was on Capitol Hill for a second day in a row.
House lawmakers yesterday praised and criticized his moves at the State Department. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has the details.
Vladimir Putin, is he a war criminal? That's not tough.
That war crimes have been committed, no doubt. And who's responsible for that? There will be time and place for that accountability. But right now, the job is to end the war.
So you won't answer the question.
If we don't end the war, people are going to get
reclaiming my time, sir.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio on the Hill for the second day of sometimes contentious questioning.
I'll give you a second chance. Is Vladimir Putin a war criminal?
I already told you war crimes have been committed.
No, you didn't tell me if he's a war criminal.
This time on the House side, the day before on the Senate, Rubio saying war crimes have been committed in the Russia-Ukraine war, but falling short of calling Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, a war criminal, saying that he first and foremost wants to end the war.
Crimes have been committed in the war on Ukraine, and there will be accountability for that. But our goal right now is to end that war, because let me tell you, every single day that that war goes on, more people are killed, more people are maimed, and frankly, more war crimes are being committed every day that the war lasts.
Rubio says that even with budget cuts reaching up to nearly 50% of the State Department's budget and restructuring in the whole department, he said that the U.S. will still provide more humanitarian aid to other countries than the next 10 other countries behind the U.S. combined. He also laid out how much bureaucratic red tape is preventing the State Department from taking vital action.
In order for an idea to reach me, a decision to reach the Secretary of State, some of these things have to be checked off by 40 people, 40 boxes. And if any one of these people has a question, they can hold it up before the idea even ever gets to me.
Secretary Rubio was also questioned on recent bills that passed the House, namely the Falun Gong Protection Act and the Stop Forced Organ Harvesting Act. Falun Gong practitioners are a group of around 100 million people in China, and they practice truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance, and they're targeted by the Chinese Communist Party for their faith.
You know, you and I have worked on issues like forced organ harvesting. You and Tom Cotton were the prime sponsors of a bill on the Senate side. And Xi Jinping is making billions by killing tens of thousands of young people, average age 28, each and every year, Falun Gong. And you know it, you're the sponsor of the bill.
Obviously, the organ harvesting, China plays a concerning role in that regard, and we would obviously be helpful in any way we can.
Rubio added that certain embassies around the world may be increasing staffing to process more visas more quickly, just in time for the World Cup and the Olympics here in the U.S. Reporting from Capitol Hill, Jack Bradley, NTD News.
A rare May nor'easter is set to drench New England.
That's right. Forecasters say it will bring a burst of wintry weather, more typical of December than late spring.
Starting today, forecasters say gusts of more than 40 miles per hour and up to 2 inches of rain are possible, with snow expected at higher elevations. The heaviest rain is likely in Rhode Island and eastern Massachusetts.
Yeah, unfortunately, right in time for the Memorial Day weekend. Meteorologists say the unusual setup is being driven by a stalled jet stream and cold air that funneled down from the Canadian Arctic. Experts describe this as sort of like a traffic jam in the atmosphere where cold air is stuck in place instead of flowing as it normally does from east to west. This is creating what one forecaster calls a winter-type storm in May. And as I said, Memorial Day weekend approaching. This will mean outdoor activities like cookouts, beach trips, and parades are going to be dampened.
There are some new developments in the New Orleans jailbreak. Police have arrested 2 women for allegedly assisting the escapees from the Orleans Justice Center in Louisiana. At this time, 5 inmates are still at large, while 5 others are in custody. Louisiana State Police said in a statement that Courtine Harris and Courtenay Baptiste are accused of accessory after the fact. Harris is accused of contacting one of the fugitives by phone before the jailbreak and later driving 2 escaped inmates to multiple locations in New Orleans. Baptiste was allegedly in contact by phone and social media with one of the escapees, who's now in custody. If convicted, each woman could face up to 5 years in prison. A maintenance worker at the jail was arrested Tuesday in connection with the escape. And now on to the federal charges against a congresswoman accused of assaulting federal agents at an ICE facility. LaMonica McIver made her first court appearance yesterday. McIver appeared virtually from Washington during the 15-minute hearing in Newark, New Jersey. She was not asked to enter a plea and mostly answered questions from the judge about understanding the charges. McIver was released with conditions, including surrendering firearms, and was allowed to travel for official congressional duties. The charges come after a May 9th incident where McIver allegedly pushed and grabbed federal agents during an attempted arrest of Newark's mayor. McIver denied the charges. In an interview with MSNBC, she called them politically motivated and defended her actions as part of her congressional oversight duties. Her next court appearance is set for June 11th, and she must appear in person.
An inclusive recruiting framework or a race-baiting ideology? A House committee yesterday examined DEI initiatives in American education. NTD's Sam Wong has more.
It's a philosophical roots nourished in the seedbed of Marxism. DEI states that our surrounding social construct determines our destiny. Not effort, tenacity, grit, dreams, or character, but instead our ancestry, history, and color.
A Wednesday hearing at the House Subcommittee on Higher Education and Workforce Development examined the implications of diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, otherwise known as DEI. Supporters suggested that opposition to DEI is politically motivated.
Politicized attacks on DEI are largely informed by anecdotes and small numbers of reported wrongdoings on a relatively tiny number of campuses.
While critics say the policy undermines merit and puts group identity above all else.
It teaches that all social ills can be traced to an oppressor, a segment of people in which prejudice and hatred is always justified.
I had dinner last night.
Since day one of his second term in office, President Trump has been working to eliminate DEI mandates in the federal government. The administration is also pressuring major universities, telling them they have to either roll back those programs or lose federal funding. But some schools have yet to comply with that policy.
Unfortunately, many universities have continued to engage in illegal race-based discrimination, defying both the nation's highest court and the president. An April 16th report from Parents Defending Education noted that 245 universities still have institution-wide DEI offices or programming, and that 180 colleges or schools within universities do as well.
Outside of government and education, DEI programs are embedded across the private sector, which some experts say is eroding the standard of their professions.
Medical schools now emphasize political ideology with less time dedicated to anatomy and physiology. Accreditation bodies impose DEI requirements that promote unlawful discrimination in admissions and hiring. State licensure boards are mandating implicit bias training based on tools with no proven validity.
Earlier this week, the Justice Department announced a new initiative targeting DEI efforts on university campuses. Officials said federally funded institutions that violate the rule could be subject to fines and even criminal prosecution. Sam Wong, NTD News, Washington, D.C.
The Justice Department is ending police reform agreements and investigations into 2 police departments. The DOJ says the agreements represent a failed experiment while handcuffing local leaders and police departments. A statement by the Justice Department reads that police reform measures turn power over to unelected and unaccountable bureaucrats, often with an anti-police agenda. The cities of Minneapolis and Louisville secured court-approved settlements after the deaths of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor in 2020. The DOJ's Civil Rights Division will now seek to dismiss the pending litigation against the two cities. The division also plans to close investigations into the police departments of Minneapolis and Louisville. The deaths of Floyd and Taylor sparked protests and riots across the U.S. in 2020. Louisville and Minneapolis were the two most high-profile cities to be investigated for alleged police abuse.
Up ahead, looking to plan a summer trip? Expect to pay inflated accommodation prices at popular destinations. But we'll speak to a data analyst at Bankrate for what you can expect and for advice on finding deals.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, I have an important message about security. Write down the number on your screen so you can call when I finish. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. This is a lock for your life insurance, a rate lock that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. But be careful. Many policies you see do not have one. But you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. Call this number to learn more. This plan was designed with a rate lock for people on a fixed income who want life insurance that fits their budget and is simple to get. Coverage options start at $9.95 a month, less than 35 cents a day. Act now, and your rate will be locked in for life. It will never increase, guaranteed. This is lifelong coverage that can never be canceled as long as you pay your premiums, guaranteed. And your acceptance is guaranteed, with no health questions. You cannot be turned down because of your health. Call for your information kit and read about this rate lock for yourself. You'll also get a free beneficiary planner. Both are free with no obligation. Don't miss out. Call for information, then decide. Read about the 30-day 100% money-back guarantee. Don't wait. Call this number now.
Call now and you'll also get this free beneficiary planner. Use this valuable guide to record important information and your final wishes, and it's yours free just for calling. So don't wait. Call 1-800-357-4821 for your free information. That's 1-800-357-4821. There's no risk or obligation. That number again is 1-800-357-4821. That's 1-800-357-4821. 1-800-357-4821. Call now.
Hate is loud. It gets clicks. It gets attention. Hate, however, is actually quite small. But love is the majority, filling up something far more important than any feed. Love fills our hearts, our lives, our every day, with understanding, empathy, and compassion, leaving hate to become what it truly is, a whisper.
Welcome back. The NBA has named its most valuable player.
That's right. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander of the Oklahoma City Thunder got the nod a day after leading his team to a Game 1 victory over the Minnesota Timberwolves in the Western Conference Finals.
Gilgeous-Alexander won over Nikola Jokic of the Denver Nuggets, who the Thunder just defeated in a Game 7 playoff blowout. Last year, the Thunder guard finished as runner-up to Jokic, who won his third award.
The seventh-year guard was the best player on the best team in the regular season. SGA, as he's nicknamed, led the NBA with nearly 33 points per game, shooting 52% from the three-point line and 38% from behind the arc. The all-around player also averaged over 6 assists, 5 rebounds, and nearly 2 steals.
And Fleet Week, a celebration of the U.S. Navy, Coast Guard, and Marine Corps, returns to New York City for a week-long event. It coincides with the 250th anniversary of the Navy and the Marine Corps.
Now, the event has been held nearly every year since 1984 and kicked off yesterday in New York.
A parade of ships sailed into New York Harbor and then proceeded up the Hudson River, passing the Statue of Liberty.
Rain yesterday did not dampen the lines for people gathered along the Hudson River to watch.
And the event offers the public a chance to meet America's sailors, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen and to see firsthand their military capabilities.
Now, the event will run through Tuesday, the day after Memorial Day. And with Memorial Day weekend coming up, it marks the beginning of the summer travel season. It's also when demand for travel accommodations peaks, meaning inflated prices. Joining us to discuss summer travel planning is Bankrate data analyst Alex Gailey, who recently published a study on this topic. Thanks for joining us this morning, Alex. How much more should people expect to pay during the summer months?
Well, thank you for having me here today. So average seasonal markups for those popular summer vacation spots can range between 59% up to 117%. So it really depends on the specific location and how much demand there is there. But I would say on average, a lot of these popular summer vacation spots such as Long Island, New York, Saratoga Springs, Lake of the Ozarks, among many others, you can expect short-term rental rates to be 1.5 to 2 times more expensive in the summer than they would be during off-season.
Now, you mentioned the Hamptons and you mentioned the Ozarks. In your study, what locations carried the highest premium from its off-season rates to its peak rates?
So in the summertime, you do see that Long Island has a big swing in those short-term rental rates for summer. Saratoga Springs, Yellowstone National Park, Lake of the Ozarks, as well as Lake Norman. Those are in the top 5 that we looked at for summertime. When it comes to spring, you see a huge swing in Augusta, Georgia, because of the Masters Golf Tournament, which has already passed. But looking ahead next year, if that's something you want to do, then I recommend planning ahead and budgeting far in advance.
Yeah, you mentioned all the fun locations that myself and a lot of other people would like to go to this summer. So what advice do you have for travelers, who are looking for deals and trying to find a way to maybe plan a vacation on a budget?
Well, these popular summer vacation spots, they're popular for a reason. They're water destinations, or they're drawing people in for a singular event or reason, such as Saratoga Springs with horse racing. If you want to go to one of these places and you haven't booked yet, then expect crowds and high prices, but maybe you skip these places this year if that's somewhere you want to go, and you start planning for next year, because we know that this is a place that is going to have the same things you're looking for next year. So maybe you can start planning and budgeting far in advance, as well as taking advantage of travel deal sites and credit card points and miles. Maybe you go on a trip with a group so you can split the cost of a short-term rental and make it overall a more affordable trip, and maybe you can cook more while you're doing it. There are a lot of ways that you can save on travel, but I think the key here is planning far in advance, as well as having flexibility. I mean, if you're able to be flexible with your timing, maybe you go in shoulder season, or maybe you can go in the middle of the week instead of a popular weekend, that can certainly cut down the cost of travel.
And you mentioned hotels versus staying at non-traditional lodging. What does the data tell us about the difference in those two different types of accommodation options?
So hotel prices tend to also fluctuate and go up during certain times of the year, peak season with certain destinations. So you do see that you're going to pay higher hotel prices in a lot of these locations as well. We didn't look at the very specific data to compare the two, but I would say, hotel rates tend to maybe fluctuate actually a little less because the supply is set in stone, whereas with short-term rentals, supply can fluctuate a little bit more. I think what I would tell consumers when it comes to staying at a hotel versus a short-term rental, make sure you're comparison shopping ahead of time and making sure that you're kind of seeing the costs that you would incur with a short-term rental versus with a hotel. I will say one benefit of staying in a short-term rental with a group, for example, is you can split the costs, as well as you're more likely to cook in the home. There's likely a kitchen there, so you're maybe not dining out as often and spending in that category while you're traveling.
No, that's a great tip on saving money on meals. You did a very comprehensive study on this and you published it on Bankrate. What was the biggest surprise to you that you encountered in authoring the report on this topic?
I think just seeing how big those swings can be during these peak seasons. I mean, you can see a swing as high as 100% in some of these locations. And so it just goes to show that, these places are popular for a reason, like I said, but it's also important for consumers and travelers to be aware of these price swings so that they are trying to, maximize their budget when they are traveling, and they can be more budget conscious when they are making these plans. Again, I think planning ahead is really going to be the key way to cutting costs, being flexible, trying to take advantage of those travel deal sites, those credit card points and miles so that you can lower those costs. But I think this just kind of goes to show that you can expect to pay a premium if you want to go to these popular vacation spots in the U.S. during the summer. And it's a similar story for those fall and winter destinations such as skiing and football towns.
Yeah, you mentioned skiing. Conversely, ski towns and corporate centers tend to have lots of rooms for capacity for high season, maybe for the, in New York City, for example, you can pretty much go to any museum and you can dine at any restaurant because people are, working from home or they're on vacation. So what other tips might you have where, areas that have high capacity are giving away deals essentially because they don't have enough bookings?
Well, I would say definitely do your research, look at those travel deal sites. And what I recommend is letting whatever travel deal you score guide your planning. So maybe this is a place that you didn't have on your list, but you find that there's a deal available right now. Well, maybe you take that and maybe you have some flexibility with the dates there, and then you're letting that guide your travel plan. So I think that can be a really effective way to lower the cost of travel as well and take advantage of some places that maybe have a lot of capacity, but they're just not maybe filling up those rooms as much as they'd like.
And Alex, in our last 10 seconds, where are you going on vacation this summer?
I'm going to the mountains, so I'm going opposite direction of the beach, and I'm taking all these tips with me while I'm doing it.
Sounds like a great plan. Alex Gailey with Bankrate, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
All right, and still to come, chocolate, weight loss, and self-love. Carolyn Eichhoff brings it all together in a new way that's changing lives and redefining health right after the break.
Focus on beauty, showcase nature, share kindness, feel brightness. 2025, the 5th NTD International Photography Competition. Capture the beautiful moments in your eyes. Your works will be showcased in galleries and on multiple online platforms, appreciated and collected. Please visit photo.ntdtv.com.
Shein Creations, the streaming platform from Shein, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore SheinCreations.com.
I was a young dad of 3 amazing kids, and just when you feel like life is starting to come together, you get kind of hit in the face. I was born with a congenital heart defect and had open heart surgery as a kid. I was supposed to go to the heart doctor once a year, and I finally went. He listened to my heart, and I'll never forget, he sat back and he said, yeah, it's time for open heart surgery, or you risk your aorta rupturing, and that's it. I was scared out of my mind. The night before my open heart surgery, I made a goodbye video for my kids, just in case I didn't make it. Be strong. Take care of your mom. I love you guys.
Seeing, all the kids hug him goodbye and hoping that they were going to be able to hug him again.
I love you. But I did make it, thanks to the work of the American Heart Association. So that's why I'm asking you to join me. Please call now or go to helpheart.org with your donation to help save lives. You can help get the next person trained in CPR, get the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care, as well as fund the next medical breakthrough like these heart valves that help save my life.
I'm most grateful that I get to have a husband that I get to grow old with, and a husband that gets to be there for his children.
Heart disease is the #1 killer in the U.S. That's why it's so important that you call or go online right now with your generous gift. I believe without the American Heart Association, I would not be here today. If this can happen to me, it can happen to you, it can happen to anybody. We all need your help. And your donation can literally help save a life. Please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org now with your gift of any amount.
Welcome back. Chocolate, weight loss, and self-love. 3 things that might not seem connected, but for author and nutrition expert Caroline Eickhoff, they are all part of a powerful journey.
Eickhoff, who once lost hundreds of pounds only to regain it, now is inspiring others with her book, The Secret of Food, and also with her unique approach to health. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more.
In this small chocolate factory, Caroline Eickhoff is creating more than just a sweet treat. She's shaping a philosophy. The author of The Secret of Food and a health coach, Eickhoff believes food is much more than just fuel. Eickhoff's journey to health was anything but linear. She lost nearly 300 pounds through extreme dieting and exercise, first losing 200 pounds only to gain it all back. It was a wake-up call.
And that led me on the path of looking at food in a very different way. And that's why I also got inspired to write the book.
For years, food felt like the enemy, but through mindfulness, self-compassion, and a shift in perspective, Eickhoff found freedom.
And when I changed the whole way how I viewed food as not like as a punishment or to deprive myself in a way or to restrict myself, I transformed the way I was behaving and the way I experienced food in a very joyful way, and I changed it from pain to freedom, actually.
She emphasizes the spiritual side of eating, urging people to become more present with their meals and their bodies.
We're always on the rush, on the go, and then so many times we're eating in front of the television or the phone, and we don't even know what we are eating right now. And then switching this behavior to become more present. Oh wow, so what is it that I'm actually like eating right now? Is that nourishing me? What kinds of thoughts do I have right now?
Eickhoff also created a guilt-free chocolate treat called Love Balls, made with dates, raw cacao, and raspberry powder. A snack, she says, that proves indulgence and health can coexist.
We have so many people, eating these love balls and like losing the weight because it's also like a sign again. You don't have to deprive yourself.
Ultimately, her message is about kindness to ourselves and our bodies.
Taking every day like step by step. And then we fall off the wagon again, but that's okay. And then we do it the next day again. And then maybe we have a good few days and then we fall back, but it's not like, okay, now everything doesn't make sense anymore.
Through her book, her chocolate, and her story, Eickhoff is proving that health is about more than just numbers on a scale. It's about joy, balance, and self-care. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
So I love that package and that narrative, but I have to say I'm a little confused. Are we supposed to eat more chocolate and lose weight, or what? You know more on this topic than I do. What's going on here?
I was going to say, actually, the stress hormone, cortisol, if that's high, then you can't digest things as well anyway. So I do agree from the scientific perspective of relaxing, enjoying the food, being in a good state when you eat is perhaps just as important as what you eat, although it does look like pretty high quality chocolate she's eating. So
there you go.
It'd be pretty good for you.
So if I eat high quality chocolate and I'm very relaxed, I can just take it as much as I want.
That's where it gets to it, right within the right amount.
This whole balance thing, you're sort of glossing over that part, I think.
Yeah. Okay, but we have another story here for you that's also kind of uplifting. The 11th annual Jonathan Foundation fundraiser ceremony took place recently And that's all designed to help raise money, to help provide resources and help for families navigating the special education system.
NTD's Ruby Lovell was there to speak to the founder as well as some of the high-profile guests. Let's have a look at that.
I'm at the star-studded, dazzling red carpet event here at the spectacular rooftop at the Sheraton in Universal City with captivating panoramic views for the Jonathan Foundation's 11th annual Spring Fundraising and Awards Gala. The Jonathan Foundation is a non-profit charitable organization for children with learning disabilities, which was founded in 2001 by a dynamic mother, Raja Mahabar, whose two sons, Omar and Jonathan, were diagnosed at an early age with learning difficulties. Firstly, many congratulations on such a warrior mentality that you've fought so tirelessly and now changed the face of education for disabled children. You literally, like any mother does, tried to get education for your children who had learning disabilities.
I did, and I had pushback from the school system. They weren't giving them the services they needed, so I fought tooth and nail and ended up with a due process. Again, the second largest school district in the nation. 8 years of hell, and after that I thought, no family should go through what my family went through, and children shouldn't be sacrificed for a free and appropriate public education, which is the law under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act.
And I'm here with Omar and Jonathan Mahabar. They're the sons of Raja Mahabar, and this was started because of them all the way back in 2001 when you were diagnosed, both of you were diagnosed at an early age with learning difficulties. If I can just come to you, Jonathan, it's kind of come full circle, hasn't it? Because what your mother fought for tirelessly, you are now on the board fighting for other children with learning disabilities. Tell us about your work on the board.
It's actually a beautiful thing. Actually, Mark Nelson, who's coming tonight, is one of the speakers. Is actually a child that I spoke with, when I was younger. So to go through it, finally got on the better side of things, and then talk to him with mentorship and stuff like that, and to see him grow and see what he's been able to accomplish is really a beautiful thing. I think the beauty about doing what we're doing is there's something greater than the value of a dollar. It's the ability to impact somebody's life in a positive way, and if you can make them perpetuate that to do to somebody else, that's even greater.
It's been great. The biggest thing as far as the foundation, as far as what it means to me, is so that people don't have to go through the same challenges my brother and I did, and that's really why we put the time in and the work to do what we do here today.
And the gala is now like in its 11th?
Yeah, it's his 11th year.
Yeah. Big sponsors.
Big sponsors. We've come a long way. We hope that we can raise enough funds as we, pray on every year so that we can continue to help these children that have these disabilities to, have a more prosperous future.
This is Aaron and Denise Richards, who's being honored today for philanthropic efforts and also for your kind of fight for your daughter. Tell us about your daughter Eloise, who kind of started this quest for you to help out with this Jonathan Foundation.
She's an angel, and, having a child of special needs, we know all too well how difficult the journey is, and for the Jonathan Foundation to provide such a support system and being an advocate for families, it's just very humbling and incredible.
Inducted into the R&B Hall of Fame, also
I was displayed in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Come on,
the Men of Motown
this is
Hall of
royalty
Fame.
of music.
Yeah.
Worked with some superb artists, right? Like Janet Jackson.
Yeah, I produced Janet Jackson, Justin Timberlake, Suit and Tie, I wrote that, Shein Day.
So you make the beats, the melodies, all of it?
Yes, all of that, yes,
so
absolutely.
You're the one who can't sleep at night and you hear something in your brain and then you got to get up and quickly
You know me very, very well. The Jonathan Foundation, which I've been going to at least for the last 10 years, is for the children. And the children are our future. Anything to support the children, you got me. For learning disabilities and also music. Music is the healing force of the world. And when a child picks up an instrument, it helps them with math and everything else. So anything that has to do with children, you got me all day long.
Now you're hosting this event.
Yes.
What a fantastic support and solidarity of people with that kind of celebrity platform.
When I was doing the weather, being invited to host nonprofit events was always the most satisfying part of my job. I always said to people when I would put my head down at night, on the personal satisfaction scale, helping nonprofit organizations was much more satisfying than being inaccurate about the weather 4 out of 5 days a week. I love doing this. We're just smiling and having a good time.
Now, you are groundbreaking because you were the first person with disability to feature in a TV series, weren't you? Facts of Life.
Yes, I was the first person with a visible disability cast in a series, and that was amazing.
So what do you feel about the Jonathan Foundation and their work?
Oh, I love the Jonathan Foundation. It's incredible. They do such wonderful work for people.
This has been Ruby Lovell at the Sheraton Universal City for the Jonathan Foundation's 11th annual Spring Fundraising and Gala Awards, NTD.
You know, is it work for Ruby? It looks like she's having a lot of fun out there.
Star.
She finds a way to, you know, put on a really nice dress and go out in LA society. But what a great fund this was, the Jonathan Foundation.
Certainly. It helps with advocacy, navigating the education system, and actually serving more and more of a need, because apparently, according to the CDC, the rate of developmental disabilities in children 3 to 17 increased by more than 1 percentage point just from 2019 to 2021.
Wow.
That's a very short time period, and it does make me wonder, you know, especially in the context of RFK Jr. saying, flagging this potential rise in autism across the board in children, but we're also seeing many issues even with adults with attention and things like that. So, you know, kudos to them, this foundation doing good work.
Yeah, you don't know about it until you're in that situation where your child or someone you know is struggling and they don't have the resources they need. So kudos to her for starting this effort 20 years ago when her children needed it, and not just taking, you know, a bad situation and then not just moving on, actually creating something so that the future generations of parents would have that support and have what they need to get the education for their kids that they need. So.
Yeah, it's a great legacy. All right, well, we've got to wrap up our show now, but be sure to stay tuned for NTD News Today at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, coming right up.
For around-the-clock original news coverage, visit us at ntd.com, or we know you already have our app, so you don't have to download it. It's already there. I'm Carrie Dunst.
I'm Stephanie Cox. See you soon.
Looking for a healthy and smooth-tasting brew? Drop by Days Coffee Roasters today and explore our wide